I'm going to make some adjustments to the flight plan for this airport specifically, just so we get a nice simple left turn onto final. If you're flying into Jersey, you can follow along with what I'm doing here, which is removing the Shark and JW waypoints, but if you're flying into another airport, it's entirely possible that the star will lead you directly to your RNAV final approach. Even if you are flying the Phoenix A320, I'd still recommend checking out your flight in the world map beforehand, just so you can get an idea of what your approach looks like and if there's any adjustments you'll need to make. Once our flight plan is completely configured, we'll run through it on the ND in plan mode. I recommend you also do this just so you can see your approach visually, get an idea of what to expect during the flight, and clear up any issues in the FMC before you start your flight. Our flight plan looks good all the way to final, so let's go. With the aircraft in takeoff config and our cruise altitude set on the MCP, we'll set throttles to flex and begin our takeoff roll. After we rotate, we'll perform our normal climb procedure up to our cruising altitude. Details of the standard A320 climb procedure are covered in my full flight tutorials for both the Phoenix and the fly-by-wire. After we reach our top of climb, we'll fill in our approach ref page. In both the Phoenix and fly-by-wire, this information is found in the EFB. We'll also find the altitude we need to be at the final approach fix in our FMC flight plan. At Jersey, this is 2,000 feet with a 3-degree glide slope to the runway. We'll dial in 2,000 feet into the MCP. As usual, at top of descent, we place the aircraft into its managed descent. As always, when we reach our deceleration point, the aircraft will begin to slow to approach speed. At this point, of course, we increment our flaps until we're at approach config. Notice the horizontal deviation and vertical deviation markers that have appeared on the PFD, which are unique to an RNAV approach. As we get close to our final approach fix, we'll put the plane into approach mode, just as we would for an ILS approach. Similar to an ILS approach, the aircraft will now follow its vertical and horizontal guidance to the airport. You'll also see the landing checklist to make sure your aircraft is in landing config. It's not possible to auto-land on an RNAV approach, so as we reach about 400 feet, we'll disengage the autopilot and fly the approach manually. From here on out, it's just a regular landing, idle the throttles when you're above the threshold, apply reversers upon touchdown, and auto brake will bring you to a stop. With no rollout mode, of course, you'll need to steer the plane using the rudder to keep it straight on the runway while you slow down. And this concludes our successful RNAV arrival in the Airbus A320. RNAV approaches are not the complex, scary thing that some make them out to be. Flight planning and the approach itself are very similar to your normal ILS approach. I hope this video gives you the confidence to try them for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it
Hey everyone, welcome to another video of Flight Simulator 2020. In today's video I'd like to perform an RNAV approach using the A320neo. For the arrival airport, I selected San Francisco International, that's Kilo Sierra Foxtrot Oscar, SFO. And we'll be doing RNAV GPS, in brackets, runway 1 on your left. The approach. So what's different about the RNAV GPS is that compared to the ILS's, the VORs, actually no, compared to the ILS, the RNAV is considered as a non-precision approach, although we're going to use a phase, what we call LPV, which is quite similar to an ILS, but somewhat still considered as a non-precision regardless. But anyway, just to give you an idea about RNAV, it's just a method of navigation which permits the operation of the aircraft on any desired flight path.
127 decibels.
What it means by that is that you can just do any approach without the need of any ground navigation aids, like a localizer or VOR Vortec station. That's pretty much is like an alternative if you ever need to do an approach to an airport that has a, for example, a localizer and a Vortec station that needs to be in service. An RNAV could be one option, or it'll be the best option, if I must say. Now, to give you an idea in the head, the Airbus A320neo in this simulator has so many flaws and misconceptions. Around like 60% of it might be incorrect and 40% might be alright. But especially for this RNAV, there's a lot of things that I've discovered were quite off compared to real-time flying on the Airbus. Later I'll point out what I'm trying to refer to in the misconception in this simulator, especially for the Airbus. But before I head into that, I want to do a quick brief with you guys on the approach that we're doing. So once again, it's SFO 19er left, the RNAV GPS approach. That's San Francisco, California, obviously. So we're going to do a GPS, so it's a WAS channel 58015. Whiskey 100 Alpha, that's basically the database. And then our approach course will be a 194, runway length 8,650, touchdown zone elevation 11, and approach airport elevation is 13. And then you're gonna notice there's a little notice says RMP approach, and then below is your little notice for you to be aware of if there's any changes required that needs to be done by you, the pilot command. And we're gonna move on. This runway has a MLZF, and then this approach has climb to 500 and climbing left turn to 3000 direct Dumba and hold from there. ADIS, NorCal approach control, San Francisco Tower, ground control, clearance delivery, and CBDLC.
Listen, 1123, contact NorCal approach on 135.65.
We're going to do the LPV approach. It says DA, however this approach this is not a precision approach, it's still a non-precision, so hypothetically it's MDA, non-precision altitude. So the height is 293 feet. That could be at my lowest. For me, around 293 I should have the runway in sight. If not, I'll just go mist, do the MAP approach, as we discussed earlier. So right now we're just gonna configure the aircraft, make sure I slow it down to green dot. And also to mind you, if you guys didn't notice, I'm using the latest mod, fly-by-wire version 0.4, if I'm not mistaken, 0.4. And so far so good. I believe the guys did a great job modifying the aircraft to make it as real as possible, or pay where relevant. So I'm actually looking forward to more future updates with them. So we're actually 5 miles from Berks. Once we cross over Berks, we can descend down to 2,800 feet. That's the final approach fix, and at which we should be able to capture the what we call magenta brick. I'll show you momentarily, in which the aircraft will follow it down. Alright, I'll start my landing configuration. I'll put down flaps number 2, land gear down, spoilers are good to go. Make sure the lights are on. 5 miles from Berks. Once we cross over Berks, we can descend down to 2,800.
ahead, flight deck.
We will be ready shortly.
Roger.
Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead, flight deck.
We are ready for pushback and engine start.
Roger. Release the parking brakes, please.
Parking brakes released.
Pushing back. You are clear behind, and you can start your engines at your discretion.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Pushback complete. Set parking brakes, please.
Parking brakes set.
Roger. Okay, the tow bar is disconnected and the equipment is clear. We will see you on the right-hand side with the pin.
Thanks, and you can disconnect and go to hand signals.
Thanks. Have a good flight. See you later.
That's the final approach fix, and at which we should be able to capture the what we call magenta brick. I'll show you momentarily, in which the aircraft will follow it down. Alright, I'll start my landing configuration. We'll put down the flaps, number 2. Land gear down. Spoilers are good to go. Make sure the lights are on. Out of third notch of flaps. And then lastly, final flaps for full configuration. Just kind of ding the bell and give them an idea they're set for landing. Now shake is our final approach fix. Around that point, the aircraft should be able to capture the well, like I said, the magenta brick. That'll take us downwards. The pink brick I'm referring to is the vertical guidance. It'll descend with it once it captures. It's like an ILS, but it's not an ILS. It's an LPV or nav approach. So that's quite the difference. So right now I'm just gonna make sure I'm all set. Full configuration, low auto brake.
San Francisco Tower using 112.11 miles.
Now this is the misconception I want to talk to you about. If you look to your left, you're gonna see a screenshot, not a screenshot, like a picture sample of what it should look like. The top portion, final approach is where what it should be shown once I'm across the final approach fix. And then you're gonna notice V/dev vertical deviation. That should appear on the top right part of the actually I'll see top left part of the vertical tape. However, it does not. That's the issue. That's the flaw I'm referring to. And also a pink brick or magenta brick, like I said, should be right there for the aircraft to follow. However, in this simulator, in order for me to find that magenta brick, I have to click on the LS, which is not how it works in real life. No, in reality, really, if you actually press the LS button, that V/dev vertical deviation sign, it will flash at you, telling you what the plane is trying to tell you is that you did something incorrect, and you should fix that immediately. That's why it's flashing at you. The V/dev vertical deviation sign is flashed at you, telling you, don't do that. You're not doing ILS. You're doing RNAV.
Weird. Someone's trying to log into my Cash App.
I wouldn't worry about it. I'm sure it's nothing serious. Like identity theft. Just give me those numbers on your phone.
With Cash App, you'll be alerted if someone tries to log into your account. Because if it's weird for real, it's weird for real.
So, like I said, if you keep it in this simulator, if you press the LS, you'll get the magenta brick, as you can see right in front of us.
Houston 1123, clear to land runway 19 left. Wind calm.
I mean, the simulator, it's got the right stuff. It just needs more. It needs to work on some gaps and bugs that needs attention. I mean, this is one of it. And hopefully the mods for the fly-by-wire team can probably fix this as soon as possible. It might take time, but patience, I have patience for that. As long as they're actually doing it correctly, which they are. Obviously, I'm not questioning them or anything. But anyway, back to the approach. So as you can see, I turned off the autopilot. I'm the one's hand flying the aircraft now. I'm just gonna descend like less than 900 feet per minute. Magenta brakes entered. Alright. Now 293s are minimum. Obviously, there are runways in front of us, but around that altitude, you should have the runway in sight, or else you have to go missed. Land. Okay, so it's 300. Runway is in sight. Continue, of course. And then now we're going visual. And go for the aiming marks. That's the white squares.
100. 60. 50.
Pull back on the thrust once at 20.
20. Retard. 5.
Spoil his arm. Restrain decel. We're decelerating as it is. Knots. And we're gonna turn on this right taxiway.
Citizen 1123, turn next taxiway. Citizen 1123, contact ground on ONE 21.8.
121.8, Fusion 1123.
Alright, flap 0, park it. Now we're good to go. So yeah, this is how you perform an RNAV, barely, on the simulator. But like I said, you already identified the misconception and the flaws and errors that this simulator is pretty much doing. But I try my best to find a way to make it as close to the real flying in the Airbus. I mean, you can still do an RNAV, you just gotta do it you have to do it the wrong way, which is you press the LS just to follow the magenta brick. Nothing's different to it. It's just basically an ILS minus it considered as a precision approach, of course. So hopefully future updates, Microsoft or the fly-by-wire team will work on that issue. So anyways, if you guys found this video very informative and helpful, then please consider liking. And if you're not currently subscribed, then please consider subscribing for more future videos. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.
Eating in or dining out, both are rewarding with the American Express Gold Card. So are you in or are you out? The Amex Gold Card serves up everything just the way you like it.
The approach we're doing today is the RNAV GPS Yankee to runway 6 in Teterboro, New Jersey. We're going to do this approach down to LPV minimums. That's going to take us down to 369 feet, which is 363 feet above the ground. The RNAV GPS approach is all satellite based. There are no frequencies to put in, no glide slope, no localizer. It's all satellite based. You will see a WAS channel in the top left. That's nothing we can put in, and then below that it says W is in whiskey, 06 alpha. W just means WAS, 06 means the runway number, A for alpha means that's the first RNAV GPS approach to this runway. If it was B, it would be the second, C would be the third. The benefit to an RNAV GPS approach versus an ILS is the RNAV GPS approach is more reliable, and it's not susceptible to reflections off snow or obstructions in front of it or vehicles driving in front of the localizer signal. Another benefit, if you have a missed approach, you don't have to change source from localizer to GPS. You're going to be in GPS, so it's less pilot workload. When we get in the air, we're going to join the approach just outside Dwarf, which is the initial approach fix. From over Dwarf, we're going to fly to Juggy. The distance is 5.5 miles, and when we get to Juggy, we need to cross Juggy at 2,000. There's a line above and below the altitude, so that's a mandatory cross at altitude. And as you can see, from Dwarf to Juggy, the course is 131. When we hit Juggy, we're going to make a left turn to 060. That is the final approach course. We're not doing a radar vector. This could be done in real life with a radar vector, but in this example, we're going to use just GPS, waypoint to waypoint, and fly it the way it's depicted on the chart. Once we turn and intercept the 060 course, we have to cross Standy at 1500. Once we pass Standy, we're going to go down to 1300. From that point, we're going to intercept the glide path and follow that down to 369 feet. The visibility requirement is 4,000 feet RVR, so that's almost a mile. We have to have at least 4,000 foot forward visibility to be able to land off this approach. We're in the Bonanza. The first step is to select the approach and procedure, then select approach. Under approach, scroll the small knob, scroll down to RNAV 6 Yankee. After we select the approach, we need to select the transition. We're doing the Dwarf transition, and that is the only transition because that is the only initial approach fix on this approach. Once that's done, we want to activate the approach. Once activated, look at the top of the PFD and make sure that fix Dwarf is at the top. That is the next fix the GPS is going to fly to. We're currently in the air at 2,000 feet, coming up on Dwarf. When doing a GPS approach, you want to make sure you're in the right mode. You want to make sure you're in GPS and not loc or VOR mode. When you're flying a GPS course, you'll have a pink needle. When you're flying a short-range course like localizer or VOR, you're going to have a green needle.
Hey everyone, welcome to another video Flight Simulator 20.
Welcome to my channel, and I'm back with you once again with another video of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Nowadays I'm exploring the Airbus A320 Neo by any builds, and in this regard I'm making a series of videos so that it's easy for you to look for a specific information on my channel. In this regard, I have uploaded many videos in which I've told you how to configure the MCDO, how to configure the electronic flight bag, how to fly this plane on autopilot, descent management, ILS approach and landing, what to do once you land this plane, and how to perform a go-around. Now in this video, I'm going to tell you how to perform RNAV or an RNP approach. RNAV actually stands for Area Navigation and RNP stands for Required Navigational Precision. For the jet planes, if you look at the approach plates, they usually say RNP approach. So it's a very simple approach, and before I proceed further, I would just like to tell you one thing, that every time when I'm making a video, I always keep this thing in my mind that the beginners will be watching. Therefore, I try to keep things really simple and to the point. However, for this video, I'm assuming that you are familiar with the ILS approach and landing procedure and you know how to prepare this plane for the descent. Although I will be also going through these procedures during this video, but you should be really familiar with these procedures because I will not be going into the details. So let's begin this video by telling you what is an RNAV or an RNP approach. Once you are about to land at a runway, there are two types of approaches or techniques that you can use, which is the first one is actually the precision approach and the second one is non-precision approach. In precision approach, you have a ground-based navigation device which is known as a localizer, which actually guides the plane towards the runway, and it also determines the vertical path or the glide slope of the plane. In non-precision approach, no ground-based device is used. Only in one type of non-precision approach, the VOR approach, there is a ground-based device, but it's not accurate. Once I will just make a video for the VOR, you will know how precise and non-precise it is. But for the RNAV approach, it's a non-precision approach. No ground-based navigation device is used. The plane uses its own GPS navigation device to find the runway, to align itself with the runway, and then follow the glide slope, which is also known as the glide path once you are doing an RNAV approach. Today I will be doing this flight from Lahore to Islamabad. It's a short flight and I'm starting in from the runway so that I can just take my time to give you the briefing about the approach and then select the approach, and then from there I will further carry on with the video. So let's first go to the MCDU and select the approach. So right now for this flight I've selected the departure, which will be 36 right for Lahore, and for Islamabad let me just select it for you. Now let's go to arrivals and select the approach. So you are seeing that ILS is coming. I will not be performing an ILS approach, and if you just scroll down you will see RNAV approach has started to appear over here, and over here you can see VOR is also coming. So RNAV and VOR are both non-precision approaches, whereas in VOR the ground-based device is used to navigate the plane towards the runway, and an RNAV GPS is used. So I'm going to land at RNAV 28 left. I will be using this method, and you can see the runway length is also coming, and let's select it. And now we have to select the arrival. So the arrival will be ND1A, and just insert. And now you have all the information over here related to the approach and arrival in the MCDU, and you will see there is no discontinuity. Now let's go to the Navigraph charts and see what is the difference between arrival and approach, because obviously if you're a beginner you will not be really clear about it, so I would just also like to go through it. Now in the sim brief, you can see that your route is coming, departure from runway 36 right, and arrival at runway 28 left in Islamabad. Now you can see that in this sim brief, there is no approach method coming, whether ILS, RNAV or VOR. So it only ends at the arrival procedure in D1A, and that's it, and the runway is coming. Then once you're making a flight plan in the MCDU, then you select the type of approach. Now I will just go to the charts and I will tell you what is the difference between arrival and approach. So in Navigraph, if you go over here and you click this option, you will get the arrival chart. So arrival is actually a procedure how you arrive at the approach. It's if I just try to keep things simple for you. So in this flight plan, you will come to Index, then you will fly in the setting 350 degrees, and then the distance is also coming 25.8 nautical miles. And then you will come to this point, ISDO, and over here your altitude should be 6,000 and above. And this is a holding pattern also given over here. So if you want to perform a hold over here, you can perform a hold with a maximum speed of 220 knots, and the maximum altitude for this hold is 14,000 feet, and minimum holding altitude is 6,000 feet. So after the arrival, then you go for the approach. So let's select the approach. If I go over here, I can click this option and I can go to approach, and for runway 28 left, you can see different types of approaches are coming. Now we have an RNP approach. So I will pin this chart and I will also open it. Now this is an RNP approach. It is almost like the ILS approach, and there are some differences in which I'm just going to take you through. Now as it's a non-precision approach, that's why you can see that for the LNAV and VNAV approach, there is this decision altitude and height coming. It's a bit high, and if you're only going for the LNAV, you can see it's slightly higher than the LNAV. Why it is like this? Actually the minimum altitude is actually an altitude at which the pilot actually sees whether the plane is aligned with the runway or not, or whether the runway is even clear or not. We have an RVR in aviation which is known as runway visual range. So if the runway visual range is really low and you're coming for a non-precision approach and you cannot see the runway by this altitude, then you have to just abort the landing, because it's a non-precision approach. You are just like using the GPS for this, and plus as there is no glide slope indicated by the localizer, so that's why it's non-precision. But if I just open the ILS or localizer category 2 and 3 approach, you will see that the decision altitude or height is 1,847, which is almost like 100 feet above the runway. So 100 feet above the runway, it's really near to the runway, and still if you cannot see the runway, then you go for a go around, a missed approach, or you go to another. But in this case, you can see it's 318 feet above the ground. Now what is LNAV and VNAV? It is actually lateral navigation and vertical navigation. So once you're coming for the approach, whether the plane is aligned with the runway or not, it's going left, it's going right, this is known as your lateral navigation. And vertical navigation is this, that after this point, the IS411, which is your final approach fix, the plane will start to descend towards the runway with an angle of 3 degrees, and you can see at different distances, different altitudes are given. So at 5 DME or 5 nautical miles away from the runway, you should be 339 feet above the ground. Over here 3070 feet, and 3 nautical miles 2750, and 2 nautical miles 2430 feet. So distance to runway and altitude, it's coming. So now as the plane knows that at different distances, different altitudes are coming, and it's descending at a rate of 3 degrees, so it actually calculates vertical speed in such a way that the plane still keeps on descending towards the runway. LNAV is a type of navigation in which no VNAV is used. You don't use this option. VNAV, you just try to land it yourself. So with LNAV, you only align your plane with the runway, and then to follow this glide slope, you just use your piloting skills. So that's why the decision height or the altitude is coming as 433, or decision height rather, 433 feet, and the sea altitude is 2,180 feet. And that's it. Now the rest is there in the MCDO. So now if you look at this plan, actually I'm having this, maybe you'll notice some fuel issue because I've been burning a lot of fuel. I'm at the runway, so that's why I just ignore this. So now for the approach, you can see it's coming, and you can see after Salna, plane goes to SLT, Sialkot, which is a VOR in Pakistan at an airport which is in the city of Sialkot, and afterwards the plane actually follows the arrival procedure Indy 1A, and then after ISDU there is this point Renux, and then this is IS411, and then you have the run. The altitude constraints are given. They're coming with the star and a magenta color because it indicates that by this point the plane will be able to follow this constraint. And you can see OPI is 28 left, 1,800 coming because the Islamabad International Airport is 1,747 feet above the sea level. Let me just also check it. Yes, it's 1,747 feet above the sea level. So that's why altitude is slightly high. So by this point, IS411, you should be at 3,000 feet, 3,700 feet. And then from this point, you will start to descend towards the runway, and your heading is 278 degrees. Now I'm just going to fly this plane towards Islamabad International Airport, and then I will also prepare this plane for the descent and for the landing. So now I will continue my video from there. Now the plane is crossing 11,000 feet, and at this point I can configure the MCDU for the descent and for the approach. So let's go over here. This error will keep on coming because my fuel calculations are just like messed up because I've been waiting for a very long time at the runway. Anyhow, you can just ignore it. So let's go to the performance and just start entering this information over here. So in Islamabad, QNH is 1003. Temperature is 35 degrees. And the wind is 320 knots, degrees, 10 knots. And the transition altitude at which you change the barometric pressure from the standard to the given one is given in the approach plate for RNP. So let's have a look at it, and you can see transition altitude is coming as 12,000 feet. So let's enter this over there. And the minimums, as I will be using LNAV and VNAV, so that's why 2065 will be the minimums. 12,000 and 2065 for the barrel. Full flaps landing, I will not be going for config 3, rather I'll be going for full flaps, and the approach speed will be 132 knots. That's it. Now for the radio navigation, we will not be entering any information over here. The VOR is coming for Sialkot. It's automatically tuned into the Sialkot VOR because we are going towards this VOR. I think when we are near Islamabad, it will also tune into the Islamabad International Airport's VOR, which is BTR. But right now, this is not the topic of discussion, so I will be covering this topic once I'm doing the VOR approach and landing. But for this video, everything is now done. We have entered the approach information, so I can keep this page over here. So once I'm near the approach, I can also activate the approach phase. Now I'm near the top of descent, and over here I'm getting this error. If you look at the FMA, check approach selection. So this is happening with this plane. If you have selected the RNAV approach, then this error comes. There is a very simple way to get rid of it. Now let me just also set the range for this navigation display so that I should know when to start my descent. Let me adjust the altitude. I will bring it to 3,700, which is the altitude required at the initial approach fix in order to intercept the glide path. I will just also show you this thing. If you find anything different in this plane right now, because I would just like to tell you that I have actually restarted this flight because my fuel calculations were all incorrect, because I've spent a lot of time on the runway before the takeoff, so I had to do it again. So there is nothing a big change in it. Everything remains the same. So let me just wait for this top of descent to come in, or rather I can just start it right now. So now I've started the descent towards the runway, and now it's time to see how we can get rid of this error. Now this error is also coming over here. If I go to the flight plan and I select the approach, this might go away, or rather I can clear it. Let's see if it goes away. Let me just change the view, and yes, now you can see it's no longer there. So let me just adjust the view so that the MCD is clear. Now just to revise once again how you select the approach, you simply go to the destination, go to arrivals, and you select RNAV 28 left and then Indy 1A. And there's one more thing, you also have to select a via if required. Now you can see there are two vias coming, Kalmi and ISDO. let's just go to the approach plate and see why we select ISDOR or Kalmi. So if you look at the approach plate for RNP runway 28 left, you will see that this approach plate is actually starting with 2 points, Kalmi and ISDOR. Actually, these are the points where the arrival procedure finishes and your approach procedure starts. And these both points are actually taking you to your initial approach fix, which is Phoenix, because at this point you should be at 3,700 feet in order to intercept the glide path. So from this point, you will actually go to Phoenix, or from Kalmi, you'll go to Kimmel, and then you will fly in this heading, then turn left to Phoenix, and then the final approach. So if you're coming from this part of the world, you use Kalmi, and if you're coming from this part of the world, you use ISDOR. Another way to identify your via is this, that look at this chart, the star, and see where your arrival procedure is finishing. So where your arrival procedure finishes and your approach procedure starts, this is the point you select for via. So I will select ISDOR, and that's it. I just took you through once again, so if you are not really familiar with the RNAV approach and the procedures, so I just wanted to make things more clear, although I have just gone through this procedure at the runway before the takeoff. So let's now wait for the plane to actually reach ISDOR. At this point you can see there is this constraint coming for this speed and for the altitude, 6,000 feet and above, and 220 knots. So for this video I'm going to divide it into two parts. In the first part I will talk about the approach mode, and the second part I will talk about the LNAV and the VNAV. Now in the approach mode, obviously the LNAV and VNAV method will be used, but what happens is that once you are near this point Phoenix, or the final approach fix, you press this button approach and the plane enters into the approach phase, and then you will start to see vertical deviation over here, just like the ILS indicators. If you're flying fly-by-wire Phoenix simulations, you also get the LDEV, which is lateral deviation, so it tells you that whether you are aligned with the runway or not, and plus vertical deviation actually tells you how much deviation is there from the vertical path or the descent profile. So once you are near this point, you will activate approach and you will start to see VDEV, but LDEV will not come. So we will just try to have visual contact with the runway and then try to land. But I will not be landing this plane in this video or this part. I will, let me just also adjust the barometric pressure 1004, because we have crossed the transition altitude. Okay. So this is one thing that I will demonstrate it to you. So we will follow this vertical deviation just like the ILS, and the plane will then start to descend towards the runway. Then what I'll do is this, I'll just go around and come back again, and I will show you that how you will land this plane if you don't activate the approach. If you don't want to activate that and you want to land using your altitude and the manage mode for the altitude, then how you will do it. So I will tell you both the techniques. I've also done this for the Boeing planes. There is also a procedure in the Boeing planes in which you activate this approach and the plane actually follows the vertical path. This is known as the integrated approach navigation, or IAN. So in IAN, the plane automatically starts to follow the glide path just like the ILS, and then you also have the option of not activating approach mode and just using LNAV and VNAV to land. So in this video I will tell you both the tricks. It's better to activate approach once you are near the runway, But if you don't want to use it, then there's another way of doing it. Now the plane is near ISDO, and at this point 6,000 feet and above, 220 knots is the speed. And what I'll do is this, I'll just set the flaps to position 1. And now the plane is descending. Now at this point again, the speed will reduce to 210 knots. And I can further extend the flaps. Over here, I can also activate this approach, and you will see this vertical deviation has started to appear. So now I was descending to 3,700 feet so that I am at the altitude of this point Phoenix, as explained in the approach plate, so that I'm able to intercept the glide path. This is your final approach fix, and this is your initial approach fix. Now the plane is going towards approach. So as soon as this box or rectangle is over here in the middle, the plane will then again start to follow the glide path. So you really don't have to do anything. Everything is in the manage mode. Yeah, let's set the auto brakes to low, and let's arm the ground spoilers for the landing. All the lights are on, and everything is looking good so far. Adjusted the altimeter also. Very much required when you are doing an RNP approach. You should have the correct reading of the altitude so that your plane follows the glide. The best thing about today's video is this, that the visibility in Islamabad is really low. As you can see, hardly anything is visible on the ground. So I think it will be a good video to just show you that how you should not perform an RNAV approach once you have a low visibility, because obviously to a very good distance you will not able to see the runway. You have to have some good visual range, or as I told you before, RVR. So over here 3,700 plus was coming, and plane is at 5,000 feet. Still you can see we are below the vertical deviation, so it's good. At some point this will actually start to come down. If this was below over here, then there was a trouble. Then the plane has to actually descend at a very high rate in order to follow this. Here you can see the missed approach procedure has also started to appear over here on the navigation display. So now I will not land the plane. I will actually follow this path. I'll just go back to ISDO, climb up to 6,000 feet, and then I will come back again and tell you that if you don't activate approach mode, then how you land this plane. Although this is more than enough, this plane is capable of carrying landing using this VDEV mode. Now you can see final is coming. It's on because the plane is near final approach fix. Now I can lower the gears. You will hear this error. Get rid of it. And if you go to the performance, you will see the approach mode has already been activated. So this is one thing which I just wanted to show you. You can see 2065, I set the barrow, and still I'm below it, I cannot see the runway. So that's the issue.
Weird. Someone's trying to log into my Cash App.
I wouldn't worry about it. I'm sure it's nothing serious. Like identity theft. Just give me those numbers on your phone.
With Cash App, you'll be alerted if someone tries to log into your account. Because if it's weird for real, it's weird for real. Now the plane is actually following the vertical
deviation, the glide path. So that's the issue with the RNAV approach, that the runway is not visible. You can see the plane is 400 feet above the ground, and still the runway is not visible. I have to zoom in to see the runway. So that's why in low visibility, RNAV is not advised. However, there are many airports in the world which don't have the ILS or the localizer facility, so that's why you have to carry out an RNAV approach at those runways or airports. And there's this one airport which I like the most, Kathmandu. So if you are trying to land at Kathmandu, which is in Nepal, it is only RNAV. So now what I'm going to do is this. I'm just going to perform a go around and come back again and tell you how you will perform a landing without activating approach. So now I've performed a go around and I'm just going to VNUX again to perform an RNAV approach. Now you can see this flight plan is again there, and the best part about the go around with this plane is this, that once you perform a go around, the approach doesn't go away. You don't really have to select it again, and you can fly this approach. So if you go to the flight plan, you will see this approach is coming, is good. I actually activated that. The plane is straight away going to VNUX. I have a video on my channel which tells you how to perform a go around, so if you're not really familiar with the procedures, you can just go and watch that. And now you can see magenta stars are coming and different altitudes are coming, which means the plane will be able to follow these altitudes. That's why there's no issue. If the plane was not able to do it, then they would have been appearing in amber color. Now I've set the flaps to position 1 or slats. There. Let's check if everything is good. Approach speed 133 knots. So if the approach phase doesn't start, then we have to activate approach. So now at this point I'm not activating approach. The trick that I'm going to do is this. I'm going to set the altitude to 1,800. This is actually the height of the runway from the sea level. If you look at the approach plate, it's coming 1,747. So I'm going to set it at 1,800. Just round up the number. Now the plane is actually aiming for 1,800. But as there is a constraint over here, so that's why the plane will actually not go to 1,800. It will actually start to go to 1,800 after this point. So theoretically this thing should happen. So let's see. So ground spoilers are activated and all the lights and all the signs are on. And everything is good. I still have fuel left. Now you can see the plane is stabilizing at 3,700. Set the flaps to position 2, and now you can see that automatically the speed has dropped to 133 knots, which is the speed for the approach. So as soon as you will start having the flaps or extending the flaps, the speed will reduce. As you can see, it's not appearing over here, but it's automatically done by the flight management computer and guidance system. So there's this another way of doing it, but if you can do it with the approach, then don't use this method. You really have to practice a lot in order to pull off this stunt. Again, you can see visibility is really low. You cannot see the runway. Even when I zoom in, I cannot see the runway. Oh, the runway is on the left side. Excuse me for that. That was a good one, by the way. So now the plane is stabilized at 3,700, and after this point it will start to descend to 1,800 without activating approach mode. And now you can see the missed approach procedure is also there. So if you are really good at performing go-around procedures and you learn how to do that, it's very good. You can practice different landings. You can practice ILS, RNAV, and plus VOR. So all the three approaches you can just like practice. Let's wait for this point to come. And let's see what happens. Like you can see that plane is following the altitude constraint, and descent is armed, so it means the plane will descend eventually. And you can see now the descent is starting, and it's 1,800. It's coming over here. It's armed, and soon the plane will descend. It should. If it doesn't, oh yes, it started. What a sign of relief. Now with this you can lower the gears and full flaps. The speed started increasing because I didn't have full flaps and the gears were not down. That's why the speed was increasing, but now you will see the speed has started to reduce because the gears also provide drag. That's it. So landing gear down, signs on, cabin check, and spoilers are armed, flaps are full, auto brake set to low. Now the plane has automatically start to descend, and you can see this arrow is coming, which is telling you that by this point you will be at 1,800, which is not good. So what you can do is this: you can also adjust the vertical speed and just estimate that by what point you will be there at 1,800. So this is a very good indicator. I can maybe set to 12,000.
2,500. 2,500. 2,500. 2,500. 2,500. 2,500. 2,500. 2,500.
Pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up, pull up. Too low terrain. Too low terrain. Too low terrain.
Retard. 5,